Shall I start? Can't hear you. Shall I start?
G, start. Oh, you
Okay,
can't
okay.
hear me.
Okay, I'll start. Sadashiv Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Shrutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punha Punha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi.
Very good. Except for Karva Baheni, Karva Vahai.
Vahai. Okay.
And also with Visha Vahai.
Vidvisha Vahai. Okay, I'll make that note here.
Very good.
Thank you so much. I'm trying.
Good. Keep it up. So we are continuing from chapter 1. We have started and we have fairly concluded Duryodhana's state of mind. What is Duryodhan feeling when he sees his own side of army as opposed to the Pandavas' army and how they had gathered together? And as a result of this, he and his state of mind, the emotions that surfaced, the thinking that erupted, reveals very largely what is a person's inner characteristic. In Vedanta, we understand that any individual sense, individuality, what we call as ahankar, egoism, all egoism is fundamentally a correction in the long approach. Means your sense of individuality is the very obstacle towards knowing who you are, what is your nature, what is the truth, towards the firm knowledge and its establishment. The sense of individuality itself is the obstacle. वही बाधा है. The sense of egoism, मैं हूँ. This itself is what is the bondage. The more this is strong in a person, मैं हूँ, this individual, I am this form, I am this name, I am these characteristics, I have these desires, I have these wants, etc. More a person has affirmation, strength in all this, more deluded he is said to be, and that arrogance is the seed cause of his samsara chakram. state of disturbed mind that remains. So we finished how Duryodhana, the minute he saw the armies together, automatically his state of mind revealed his inner ambitions, revealed his insecurities, revealed his fears, revealed his anxiousness, revealed his competitive sense, which is gone into the stage of hatred. This has been covered. Now we are beginning to see from 20th verse onwards, we will be seeing what happens further. So, the minute Bhishma had blown the conches, thereafterwards, Duryodhana's army, everybody had blown it in a manner in which it was tumultuous. The sound was just roaring. And thereafterwards, we saw that in the opposite army, the first person to have blown the conch was Krishna, and then Arjuna, and then one after another, each brother. And then slowly we saw that the entire army, in a very organized way, okay now? So we saw the entire army in a very organized way blew the conches. The minute the Pandava army had blown their conches, that sound, he says, in the 19th verse, he said, Sah ghoshaha Bhartarashtranam hridayani vyadarayat. That sound pierced through Nabhaha Prithvim Chaiva, through it bore as if through the ground, through earth and through skies, and boring through them, it bore through all the hearts of the Dhritarashtra's sons. That loud, that piercing, pierceful, determined blow of conches it was. And now he says, what happens further? So, the in-between verses, Atha vyavasthitan drishtva Dhartarashtran kapitvajaha pravritte shastra sampate dhanuhu udyamya pandavaha. I'll just repeat the words slowly again so that you know where I'm breaking. Atha vyavasthitan drishtva. Atha, now. Having the sounds gone through, now vyavasthitan drishtva, seeing all the armies that had arrayed together, Bhartarashtran, of the Dhritarashtra's side, pravritte shastra sampade dhanuhu udyamya pandavaha. Here Pandavaha is Arjun. His other name is Kapitvajaha. That's as if referring to, describing Pandav as the one whose flag had the Kapi. Uske dwaj mein Kapi tha. Who was Kapi? Hanuman. Hanuman was seated on the flag. A story behind it. There was Arjuna had also gone to Hanuman to seek help, and Hanuman had said at that time that I am now too old to fight, but I will sit on your flag. It seems almost throughout Hanumanji was sleeping because the war was too placid for him. It was too, क्या कहते हैं, रसहीन था, मतलब it was nothing. He only woke up whenever Krishna spoke or when Bhishma came. That's the time Hanuman would wake up. Otherwise, he was sleeping on the chariot. But this verse is now describing very beautifully the strength that Arjuna holds. Who are the people on his side? Seated on his chariot itself. In front is Krishna, on top is Hanuman. These two were already on his chariot next to him, as if accompanying him. So, he says here, then, Dhanuhu Udyamya. He lifted his bow. Very slowly now, see the spirit of Arjuna. From the beginning, when we saw, he was a courageous person. He was very confident, and he was convinced that he can win the war alone. He picks up the bow. And picking up the bow, Rishikesham Vakyam. He says these words then, tada. Iha. He says, Vakyam idam aha mahipate. Mahipate is, he's telling Dhritarashtra, Mahipate means the one who's the ruler of the earth. Prithvi ka Raja. So, addresses, Sanjay is now telling Dhritarashtra, O Mahipate, narrating it, that the minute this sound had pierced through the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra, then, seeing arrayed the army of Dhritarashtra's, Arjuna picks up his bow. Till now, he is a confident person, sure of his motivations and reasons to fight, of his capabilities. He's clear so far. Tada, then, he tells Rishikesham, Krishna. What does he tell? So, Pravritte Shastra Sampate means the opposite army was, because of conches had blown, so, they were all holding their respective instrument of war in a ready state. So if you have Dhanush, then you are in that ready state. The minute Bhishma gives the call, the arrows will shoot, etc. So all of them were now in a ready mode of fight. Important. They were now ready mode, in that ready mode, ready state of mind to fight the war. He says these words to Krishna. The verse is clear. Atha, here now, Vyavasthitan Drishtva Dhartarashtran, all the sons of the army of Dhritarashtra, seeing them Vyavasthit, Samne, Pandavaha, Arjuna, who is a Kapithvajaha, on whose flag Hanuman sits, Dhanuhu Udyamya, he picks up his bow, Pravritte Shastra Sampate, seeing the opposite army, ready mode of fighting, Tada, then, Vakyam idam, these statements, aha, said, to whom? To Rishikesham. O Mahipate, O Dhritarashtra, this is what he said. And now starts Arjuna from verse 21. I'll just chant the verse once, you can just hear. Or Arjuna uvacha senayorubhayormadhye ratham sthapayamechyuta yavadetan niriksheham yodhukamanavasthitan kairmaya sahayodhavyam asmin ranasamudyame. Then it continues in the next line. We'll practice the chanting later. Is that okay? So Arjuna now says, Tenayoho Ubhayoho madhye ratham sthapaya me achyuta. O Achyuta. Achyuta, the one who has never fallen. Another name for Krishna. He uses specifically Achyuta. He says, oh Achyuta, that's like a calling him very dearly. Oh Achyuta, requesting him. Senayoho ubhayoho, between, madhye, between. Ubhayoho, both. Senaya, senayaha, senaya means between the two armies. Ratham sthapaya, place my chariot between the two armies. O Achyuta, me, my chariot, Ratham, sthapaya, khada karo, between the two armies. Why? What is the purpose? Yavat etan nirikshe aham. Yavat, then, because of which, tat, etan nirikshe aham. I want to see clearly. Niriksha karna. What is niriksha karna? Is almost like बहुत ध्यान से देखना, बारीकी से देखना. I want to see very carefully. I want to see clearly. I would use the word, but that is me using the word. I would use the word, I want to analyze. He's still alert. He's still in his full warrior mode. As a strategist, he wants to create a strategy by seeing the strength of both the armies. So in between, I want to stand to see, निरीक्षा करने के लिए. क्या देखना है मुझे निरीक्षा के लिए? योद्धु कामान अवस्थितान. Who are the ones who have assembled, अवस्थित हुए हैं, who have assembled with what? Kaman, desire for yuddha. Yodhu kamana vasthitan. I want to see who all have assembled together with a desire to fight. On whose side? Both the sides. I want to see that in a kaman. Kaman is an important word. So the ones that I have again highlighted, madhye, in between. Standing between both the armies. What do I want to do? I want to do niriksha. I want to examine. I want to see clearly. I want to assess. Whenever the mind is, now I'm generalizing a principle which can be applicable to daily life also, in all situations. Whenever situations present two sides and you want to be knowing well what is it that you have to choose, then you have to first come in between. The neutral standpoint, that mind must have the capacity to pull itself away from both the forces. What will be the forces? Come back to the types of conflicts. Any conflict within oneself will have two forces. To resolve that, you will have to come between them. Coming between them would mean becoming objective, becoming neutral. So he says, Senayo ubhayoho madhye, standing in between. If you will be swayed on one side, standing more on one side, you will only be seeing one perception. Either of the sides. From one side, you'll be too distant to see what is the other point of view. And the side you are close to, you will only be harboring that point of view. He says, between them, take me. Let my chariot be between them. Then I want to see who all are assembled with a desire to fight. Kaihi maya saha yodhavyam asmin rana samudyame. So what does he really want to check? He wants to assess Kaihi, who all are there? Maya saha yodhavyam, that I have to fight with. There are so many of them. So his strategy he wants to build, who is the one who he's going to fight with? In this, who have assembled together, Rana Samudyame. Kaihi Maya Saha, along with Yodhavyam, I will have to fight. Asmin Rana Samudyame, all collected together, assembled together now in this battlefield. Who will I fight with? Then he says in the next verse, योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं य एतेऽत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः. So, योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं, योत्स्यमानान् अवेक्षे अहम यह एते अत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकीर्षवः. If I slowly say the words, I'm sure a lot of these words are intuitively being understood. Arjuna is now speaking his mind. What is his mind? Yotsyamanana. With the सोच के जो आए हैं युद्ध करने के लिए, मानान, जो those who have now decided to fight. Avekshe aham. I want to again clearly see. Aham. I. Avekshe. I want to clearly see. Ya ete atra samagataha. Those who have now collected together. And what is he qualifying as? Dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe. These are all on the sides of Dhritarashtra. Durbuddhi hai inki. They all have, I don't even know how to really translate durbuddhi. You can't say wicked buddhi, wicked intellect. You can't use durbuddhi, means wrong reasoning. इनकी सोच उल्टी ही सोचती है. They can never think right. And not only ulti sochti hai, durbuddhi means the one whose thinking is detrimental for everyone. Na, certain kind of thinking जो सिर्फ नुकसान करती है. In Hindi, if you put it like that, there is a thinking which will only affect the other in the sense that उसका नुकसान करती है. So he says, these Dhartarashtrasya, all these people, who have assembled on the side of Dhritarashtra, they all have durbuddhi. And they have assembled Priya Chikirshavaha. They have assembled with a desire to please Duryodhana. Dhartarashtrasya. So they have not come for a cause. They do not fight for a reason. They have come to only please Dhritarashtra. This happens in all power games. Even in a corporate sector, it doesn't mean it just happens in those. Everywhere, wherever there will be a hierarchy, this power game happens. And what is it? To please the higher person, the subordinate, ha 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 ha. that ha vritti, what is that called? Yes, Babu. That culture of yes, Babu. You are right. Even if you are not convinced about what the other person is saying or doing, you are right. That buddhi. He says, all these who have collected, they have not come here on a righteous reason. They have only collected together to fight us, that is the Pandavas, to please Duryodhan. And who's Duryodhan? Who are the entire side? Durbuddhehe. They have assembled together in this yudh, which means, actually speaking from Arjuna's standpoint, already this war is completely avoidable. It doesn't need to be fought. So his mindset is now beginning to shape up what he's thinking at this stage. Now he says, Sanjaya is now these repeating. Actually, Sanjaya starts here. The previous one is the Rishi speaking to Vaishampayana, speaking to them, building in the context. Now Sanjaya says to Dhritarashtra, Evam uktaha Rishikeshaha Gudakeshena Bharata. Sanjaya uvacha Evam ukto Rishikeshaha Gudakeshena Bharata Senayorubhayormadhye Sthapayitva Rathottamam. Says, Evam Uktva. Having said this, Sanjay has now taken over the narration. Actually, Vaishampayana is telling Janmajaya that Sanjay is now telling, so it doesn't matter. But point is, Evam Ukta, in this manner, O Bharata. Now Sanjay is calling Dhritarashtra Bharata, O king of this land, still telling him to wake up. Evam Ukta Rishikeshaha, to Krishna, Gudakeshena, said like this by Gudakesha, another name for Arjuna. Gudakeshaha means the one who's conquered sleep. It seems how he got this name is also another story. Means everyone gets the name by their characteristic. He got this name because he always wanted to excel in his whatever he was taught. So to excel, he would do a lot of exercises, like he would practice archery at night without light. So to do all these kind of exercises, he had somehow picked up the habit of sleeping when he wanted to sleep. So it is a way of saying he conquered sleep. निद्रा पे उसका पूरा संयम था. So all of us fall asleep, but he chose when he wanted to sleep. In later on, a lot of analysis, if you do just the psychological part of it, then sleep is an indicator of how much tamas has overtaken the system, how much of laziness, lethargy, slothiness, all these qualities in us which put us into inaction, which put us into procrastination, indifference. When we say Arjuna was a Gudakeshaha, that sleep becomes a representative of saying that he had conquered tamas. He had conquered all those characteristics which reduce us in our potential. So if our tamas increases, our potential reduces. So he had mastered his potential completely. So he was a fully bloomed person through mastering the gunas. Here in this context, sleep, representing all the tamasic qualities, could not touch him because on his will he moved them. He gathered them. Senayoho ubhayoho madhye thapayitva rathottamam. So what did Rishikesha do? The one who's the controller of senses, Rishikesha, Arjuna, Krishna's name here. He's the master of senses. We've done this in last class. Being the master of senses, Gudakesha is the master of sleep. Ratha Uttamam, this beautiful chariot, Uttam chariot, the best chariot given to him by Agni and Varun, seated Krishna himself, Hanuman there, the best of chariot, Senayoho Ubhayoho Madhye Sthapayitva. The charioteer, Sarathi, Krishna, the Sarathi of Partha, Arjuna, drew the chariot in between and stopped there. Now starts the beautiful point. Where did he stop the chariot? Now, the army has been arrayed on the Dhritarashtra's side. There was Drona, there was little Bhishma, and then Duryodhana, Karna. So all of these were spread out. Krishna, the Sarathi, took the chariot and kept it exactly in the center. That Madhye, he took it in the center of Bhishma and Drona. उनके बीच में जाके खड़ा कर दिया. भीष्म द्रोण प्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च परीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरूनिति. Okay. So, Bhishma Drona Pramukhatah. The main rulers, Pramukh, Bhishma and Drona, and Sarvesham Cha Mahikshitam. All those who had been assembled, the Maharathis who had been assembled over there, the rulers of various states, Uvacha. Who Uvacha? Rishikesha Uvacha. Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra. It's not the direct conversation yet. Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra, here now, Krishna is telling Arjuna, O Parth, Parth is son, the Arjuna's other name, O Parth, Shaitan. Look here. Dekh lo. Samavetan Kurun. All these Kurus who have assembled together. Iti, in this manner, he told Parth. Only 3 words. Iti means quote unquote. So, Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra, now the Mahabharata has to start. Setting has taken place. What is going to happen? He says, having placed the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona and all the leaders, but specifically those names, Krishna tells Arjuna, Parth, Pashaitan, look here now. Samavetan, Kuruniti, look at all these assembled gurus. And then what happened? So far, I'm sure we have all got it clear in our mind what is the state of Arjuna. Now what happened? Tatra apashyat sthitan parthaha. Tatra pashyat sthitan parthaha. Pitrinath pitamahan. Acharyan matulan bratrin. Putran pautran sakhims tatha. श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य स कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टः विषीदन्निदमब्रवीत् तत्र अपश्यत् स्थितान्. What happened? Tatra, there. अपश्यत, देख कर, स्थितान, खड़े थे जो स्थित थे, उनको देख कर, पार्थ saw. What did he see? Pitreen, atha, here, now, are standing. He didn't see Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Duryodhana, Dushasana, and the other do names, 99 names starting with do. He didn't see all of them. He didn't see Kripacharya. He didn't see. What did he see? Pitreen. Pitreen means elders, paternal elders. What we would generally call as fathers. Fathers ki side ke paternal elders. He saw Pitreen, Pitamahan, and he also saw grandfathers. So all the elders from his father's side, his father is Pandu, Pandu's relatives, elder brothers. He saw Pandu's brothers. He saw his grandfathers. He saw all these. Then he saw Acharyan. He saw teachers. Kripacharya, Dronacharya, and various. He had learned from a few other teachers also. Other things like government, politics. So different teachers had taught him different subjects, few subjects. So Acharyan, there were teachers who had got collected, who were assembled there. Matulan, there were uncles from mother's side. Uncles, Matulan, maternal uncles. Bratrin, all brothers. These are all in plural number. So brothers, Putran, sons, Pautran, grandsons, Sakhim, Tatha, also Sakhas, friends. He saw all these. Then Shvashuran, Suhradaschaiva. Shvashuran are all in-laws, from the in-laws side. So wives, relatives. Suhrudaha, they may not be your friends, but they are your well-wishers. Well-wishers on both the sides. So distant relatives, you may call them. Distantly associated, but they mean well for you. Suhrudaha cha eva. Senayoho ubhayoho api. They were all assembled on both the sides. If you understand the spirit of the verse now, what is beginning to happen to Arjuna? He told Krishna, I want to see who all I have to fight in this war. So he wanted to pick up whom he will initiate the fight with. To assess that, it was going to be an analysis from the intellect, judgment he had to make. He had to analyze, he had to assess. But the minute Krishna brought the chariot in front of Bhishma and Drona, what happened to that thought? Kya hua us thought ko? There are two things that are, sorry?
Like his thinking got diverted. जो वो सोच रहा था वो लड़ने के लिए वो भाव में वो बदल गया. प्यार मतलब वो सारा thoughts process changed.
Absolutely. It diverted itself, personalized it, absolutely became yes. Now what has really happened is He came with an objective mind, standing in between. उसकी बुद्धि चल रही थी, तब तक उसके सब इमोशन, सब भाव अपनी जगह पे स्थित थे. He always knew he was fighting his uncles and grandfathers and etc. ये तो उसको पता था. जब armies decide हो गई थी, that time he knew it. But the minute the chariot came in front of these two, he has started seeing that thought disappeared. And that's important first point of Vishad that is going to end up in. अर्जुन कैसे विषाद में आएगा, वो chronology अब शुरू हो गई. That means what is the first point? In its own place, buddhi is working and governing the personality. It is guiding your action. It is directing your emotion. You are a balanced human being. You are a fairly normal human being, let's put it. You're normal in the sense you're a balanced individual. That was your starting point. The minute he sees Bhishma and Drona in front, that something displaced it. वो सोच गायब हो गई उसके cognition से. It almost became, it disappeared. Not almost became, it disappeared. That thinking disappeared. And he started seeing his father side relatives, his mother's side relatives, his grandfather, his teachers, his sons, his etc. etc. The bhav, the feeling, the emotion started to surface. Actually, he recognized at that point another thought emerged. Excuse me. And the thought was, ये तो सब हमारे ही लोग हैं, दोनों साइड पे. They are our friends and relatives. They are our people on both the sides. And that recognition that they are both our own people, tan samiksha, seeing them, closely seeing them, saha kaunteyaha, seeing this Kaunteya, son of Kunti, now that emotional word, son of Kunti, sarvan bandhun avasthitan, all these bandhus, all these kith and kin, all these relatives, all these are all who? हमारे ही हैं. When he saw closely, he realized they were our people on both the sides. Then what happened? The first reasoning was shaken up by the recognition of the next thought of relating it to yourself. ये मेरे हैं, लोग हमारे ही हैं, हमारे हैं. Not even मेरे. मेरे was more Duryodhan. They are all our people. His thinking is they are all our people. Then what happened? Kripaya paraya avishtaha. Suddenly, his mind आवेश में आ गया. आवेश में आ गया means avishtaha, paraya, kripaya. He says, suddenly his mind got overwhelmed by kripaya. Kripaya means kripa se. Kripa generally is a very positive word. In Hindi, a lot of times it is understood as kripa karna kisi pe, showering grace or kripa also has another meaning, which means becoming weak. Chithil hona, becoming weak. Feeling a sense of kamzori, that emotional kamzori. So kripa though is a positive term, but it is also indicative of when it overpowers the mind, it is indicative of a weak mind. The weakness is taking over. So the next step that has happened suddenly is kripa overflowed. It started to take over. And then next what happened? The minute, these are such sudden changes, and that's what is to be noted here. They are sudden changes. A reasonably balanced, skillful, dexterous, assured, confident person who had set out to achieve his goal, whose plan of action was ready, whose material was ready, whose equipments, who had qualified himself for it. It is not an overnight thing. He had worked for 13 years. He had prepared himself. He had qualified himself. It was a lot of preparation for this war beforehand. It wasn't a Sunday aa gaya chalo lad lete hain. Matlab now next month, on this day Murat nikal aaya hai, let us fight. It was not like that. There was a lot of preparation that had gone. That means so much thought had gone before. Gita starts at the point of saying, one moment it can be that your inner samsara will erupt. Which situation, which circumstances, suddenly the turn in the mind happened. Suddenly the mind was overpowered by emotions. Suddenly Arjuna felt weak. Suddenly Arjuna felt helpless. Suddenly he started feeling that he started having a doubt. What am I doing? And that doubt he is going to now start expressing. But that kripaya word, which should actually be, the translation is compassion. But that positive feeling of compassion in our Shastra Drishti, even your positive emotions cannot overtake your own thinking, your reasoning. They also have to be kept under control. So even when you are doing good to others, even when you are meaning well for everyone, even those emotions have to be through the reasoning. Your reasoning has to sanction it. But in his case, these people he had lived his life with, there were a lot of memories formed. All good memories. He was loved by everybody. Except, of course, Duryodhana and camp. But what he saw in front of them, Bhishma and Drona, all those thoughts that were there, that feeling, kripaya means here, I'm extending a meaning a little. Kripaya here now means that feeling compassion would mean that, that affectionate thought. First thought was, let me see who all I have to fight. इसमें affection कहाँ है? No affection. He is come to say, मुझे लड़ना है, मारना है किसे. I have to. He is goal oriented. He is result oriented. Suddenly, memories changed. Thought changed. My point here would be, one thought change, and the world changed. In front, perception changed. This, if we are able to appreciate, then we can move ahead. His thinking started by saying, let me assess. It's a different thought. उसको दुनिया अलग दिख रही थी. सामने उसको सब warriors दिख रहे थे. सामने he was looking at everybody and he was seeing who has which capability, which war instrument he's fighting with, who he has to fight, who. That is the thinking. Where is the emotion here? Clear in his mind, no doubt. Suddenly, kripaya avishtaha, that kripa, affection towards Bhishma and Drona that he had in him, suddenly surfaced. And avesh mein aana, matlab it engulfs the mind completely. It's taken over the reasoning. दूर फेंक दिया उसने reason को. In his perception now, in front of him, his mind is only seeing. What is it seeing? His mind is only seeing his relatives on both the sides. Not just his relatives, he's seeing our relatives on both the sides. Our people on both the sides. And the minute he sees the readiness of war, everybody was ready for war, and he equates that with our people, what will happen to a mind which has got affection there?
He doesn't want to fight.
He doesn't want to fight. The first thought will be fear of loss. This is a war. He knows the consequences. He intellectually appreciated that he was going to be fighting a war. But the minute the scenario, his mind thought changed, the scenario changed in front of him, now a fear erupted. Duryodhan had a fear. He has a fear. A fear erupted, and the fear was of loss of these people. That is why I'm going to constantly remind, see the difference between the two sides. What Kauravas feel and what Pandavas are feeling. Similar emotion, but a world of a difference. Here, the minute this Kripaya Avishtaha, his mind became suddenly overwhelmed with Karuna. Karuna as in, it became overwhelmed with good thinking. What is the good thinking? According to Arjuna. Suddenly the repercussions of this magnanimous war hit him. He knew before, to win he has to kill Drona and Bhishma. But it hit him home. हम कहते ना कभी कभी we use the word, it hit us home at that time. Suddenly, a different perception hit home. At this point, would you say Arjuna was wrong? See, at every point how we will start realizing he was right in his place. Though he was prepared, and yet it overtook him in such a way that mind became so strong with affection. It became so strong of, actually the real word is affection is English. Kripaya means it's like that lubricant, that gives you warmth in the feeling in your heart. Suddenly you lose when there is a positive feeling, when you see, supposing if you're an animal lover and you see an animal mistreated, suddenly your mind changes. And that change of the mind, what happens to your own body sensation at that time? Has anybody ever registered it? Suddenly, supposing as a parent, if you have a young child and your child is going through some difficult time, you're a very strong parent, you're a very strong mother otherwise, but suddenly, what happens? Isn't it said in the field of medicine, at least I know, I don't know much about other fields, but in the field of medicine, even the best surgeon would refuse to operate on his own people. अपने ही, क्योंकि आवेशः, कृपया आवेशः. That emotion, you have to not take the word, just see what it opens into and see how it connects to us. Kripaya aveshah to save is very easy. Arjuna now became overcome by emotion, and suddenly he overcome by emotion. Next step that he slips into is Vishad, Vishidan. Vishidan is now sorrow took over. Vishad aa gaya. Ho raha hai. Vishidan, it's a continuous, the usage is in a continuous sense. He's slipping into Vishad. Sorrow has taken over. Grief has taken over. What has happened? Suddenly, it cannot be grief. By seeing them, it's not grief. But what has happened suddenly? He saw that he's going to lose them. The grief is of the loss, of his people, means his relatives, his as in not a person, but these beautiful people. His idea is not his relative like Duryodhan has. These are these are great people in front. It'll be a whole generation of good people gone. Every time our older generation goes, when we reach our middle ages, we realize that there is a slip, one step, the society has fallen. That level of values that they hold, we don't hold. So when they go, we realize that now the upholder of the value that they held so strongly, जब वो चले गए, जा रहे हैं, चले गए, you suddenly realize the society has now got a different system of values. You may be holding it. When you will go, the next generation will realize that level has again gone. There's an erosion of values. So what Arjuna is thinking is not just his personal loss. There will be a whole erosion layer of values in society because these are the people who are holding it. Even if they are on the other side, they are still wise people, they are still righteous people, they are still honorable people, they are still virtuous people. This war, if it happens, it will eradicate a whole layer. So, Vishidan idam apravi. He was engulfed with, his mind suddenly became dark. Sorrow took him over. एकदम से dejection आ जाता है. Suddenly you realize some consequence or repercussions when you accept them, suddenly you register them, the mind loses and your body language also changes. Anybody ever noticed? The sudden change of the body. Your shoulders dump and you would dump like this and this is kind of that Arjuna started feeling that. So what does Vishidan means? The grief, the sorrow, the mind. These words are very distant. But if you equate it to your situation, suddenly the overpowering of the emotion was such that his mind took over, displaced completely the reason for which he had come to fight the war. गायब हो गया. वो reason ही unmanifest हो गया. He couldn't recognize that reason. Now there are going to be new reasons that are going to come up. And the reason will be completely opposite. So once the mind has changed its perception, उसको सामने कुछ और दिख रहा है, from there, now what is the thinking going to come? He says, Arjunaha uvacha. Now Arjuna is saying to Krishna, Drishtve mam swajanam Krishna yuyutsam yuyutsum samupasthitam. He says, seeing swajanam, our own people, kithankin, our own, हमारे ही लोग, O Krishna, Drishtva imam swajanam, having seen these our own people, O Krishna, yuyutsum, some upastha, with a desire to fight, ready to fight, इकट्ठे हुए हैं, with a ready to fight. What has happened now? This vishada, this emotion is now beginning to overpower is beginning to overpower even his physiological system. How? He says physiological system means when the mind has become overpowered, then it percolates into your body. Because body is controlled through the mind. So if the mind has suddenly changed its flavor and has depressed itself, a continual depressed person, what changes in the body happen? Continuous depressed means few months and years, totally depressed. Suddenly the body, Anji?
Weakness,
Weakness,
trembling,
all lot of symptoms that are not healthy because the mind has now lost its vigor, its volition, etc. So here he says, the minute the vishada has happened, That Vishada was the third samsara I said that first chapter is showing to us. But it is this Vishada that is going to get adhikaratvam for knowledge. What is that nature of Vishada? Now he says, Sidanti mama gatrani mukhancha parishusyati vepathuscha sharire me romaharshascha jayate. He says, Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishusyati. He says, mama, mine. Sidanti. He says, कमजोर होना, suddenly losing power. What? Gatrani. Gatrani is limbs. Suddenly, mama gatrani sidanti. My limbs are becoming weak. जब किसी को emotional झटका लगता है, they shake, no? You have to hold the person. Sometimes the knees start shaking. He says, Arjun says, my limbs are becoming weak. Not only that, mukham cha parishusyati. My mouth is drying up. What are these symptoms of? Suddenly when there is a shock that happens, कहते हैं ना suddenly पानी पिलाओ जल्दी जल्दी इसको पानी पिलाओ. Anxiety. It's so beginning now. His mind has completely started to shake up. His physical body is beginning to lose control. He says, my mouth is parching. Vepathuscha sharire me. He says, my whole body is trembling. Kampan ho raha hai. I'm trembling. Itna kamzor ho gaya ki I'm trembling. I hope these words are getting translated into understanding the state of Arjuna. That extreme state is what is being projected here to such a highly qualified person. Vepathuscha sharire me. He says, my body is trembling and romaharshascha jayate. And horripilations. My hair is standing on end. That fear and that anxiety and that all those emotions have so emerged together. Uncertainty. He knows he's going to lose them. The thought of losing them. He ab honge nahi uske aage. At the end of the war, he will not have a Bhishma to go to. He remembers he slept in his lap. He remembers he was a favorite of Drona. Why? As a teacher, Drona doesn't have preference. But as a student, he excelled himself above others because he put in more effort than the others. So for Drona, he knew Drona had a special feeling for him. He never called. If somebody asked him his identity, I believe it is said in Mahabharata also, it says some verses come. If anybody asked, he never said, I'm Arjuna. He always said, I am Drona Shishya. He took his identity from Dronacharya. So his name meant, to him his name meant, I am Drona's Shishya. It's not, I am Arjuna. Drona is my teacher. I am Drona's Shishya. That is his, so to him, what would be the reverence, the devotion, the bhav, the feeling, the attachment, whatever terms you want to use, makes no difference at all. Ye sab shabdi reh jayenge. The fact is, he was one with them. इतना ममत्वम था उसको, इतना लगाव था, इतना प्रेम था, इतना सब कुछ, it was like that. Suddenly, his mind has become overpowered by the thought. He doesn't know. They're not going to be there. And that thought of lurking death on these people, romaharshascha jayate. He says, सोच के भी ये मेरे तो रोमटे खड़े हो रहे हैं. Romaharsha means रोमटे खड़े होना. My hairs are standing on end. I have horripilations. Jayate are arising. So, My limbs are becoming weak, my mouth is drying, my body is shaking, trembling, and my hair stands on end. And then what happened? Because his body is now, see, when he started just 3-4 verses before, what was it? He had picked Udyamya. No? What was that? Um, धनुः उद्यम्य. धनुष उठा के उसने कृष्ण को कहा था, टेक द चैरियट इन बिटवीन. 20th verse. How many sentences? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. By the 8th sentence. Suddenly by the 8th sentence means within 8, sudden flip has happened. And now he says, Gandivam samsrate hastat. Gandivam samsate hastat. Tvakchaiva paridahyate. Nacha shaknomya avasthatum. Brahmativa cha me manaha. He says, Gandiva, his own great, and it was a very heavy one. The Gandiva was very, very heavy. Sramsate, it's slipping. Hastat, from my hand. This गांडी उठाया था कह के कि रथ को बीच में ले जाओ. कृष्ण ने रख दिया सामने भीष्म और अर्जुन के, और हाल ये हुआ अर्जुन का कि now the Gandiva is slipping away in a few moments of that perception. Gandivam sramsate, it's slipping away. Tvakchaiva paridahyate, as if his body is on fire. Suddenly he's got fever. As if he's feeling feverish. Anxiety se hota hai na? Kabhi kabhi suddenly if the body has responded so much to, it's like an emergency situation. So the body has gone through a change. He says, Tvakchaiva paridahyate. My skin as if it is on fire. Nacha shaknomi avasthatum. He says, avasthatum, steady. I'm not able to, nacha shaknomi. I'm not able to stand steadily. So physical body, hands, kandiya. I'm not able to hold my instrument. उसी से उसको लड़ना था. He says, ये मेरे हाथ से गिर रहा है. Body feverish हो रहा है, trembling हो रहा है. Nacha shaknomi avas. I'm not able to stand erect. गिर रहा हूं मैं. Not only that, here now samsara has taken over, complete manifestation. Brahmativa cha me manaha. I should highlight these. I didn't realize I'll go so far ahead. Brahmativa cha me manaha. The mind is Brahmit ho gaya. My mind, he at least knows that. He still got some reasoning. That is why he can still ask for help. Because he knows what has happened to him is not his nature. Arjuna was not like this. He had never experienced this in that sense, in this manner before. So he still has knowledge, a little buddhi is still working. But he says, Brahmativa, my mind has now is in Brahma. Brahma is a very beautiful description, has got where there's confusion between right and wrong. Brahma उसे कहते हैं. मतलब पता तो है मगर ब्रह्म है उसके बारे में. Means I have a confusion whether this is right or wrong. Suddenly he's got confused. What is a confusion? And that reasoning he is going to start now expressing. That confusion, because just as he felt like, as we started our introduction from, Dhritarashtra felt adharma is dharma and dharma is adharma. He was certain. Now Arjuna is saying, my mind has also now got confused. What is dharma and what is adharma? Because all these people who are standing in front of me are the cream of humanity at that time. There were no better people than them. And they are the ones he has to fight. And they are, because of them, he is who he is. Why has he become such a great person? Because of them, the Lard Pyar of Bhishma, the teaching of Drona, etc. Because of them, Arjun is Arjun. And now he says, Brahmati vacha me manha, my mind, mera man, Brahmat hai. This is still objectivity. If a person can recognize कि उसका मन भ्रमित है, this makes him qualify for getting help. दुर्योधन ने कभी नहीं कहा कि मेरा मन भ्रमित है. धृतराष्ट्र तो certain है कि he is right. That वो गलत है, हम right है. He is right. He thinks यही सच बुद्धि है. But Arjun, being Arjun, he says, I am not sure what is the right thought. And what are these going to be? 31st, he is going to give us a few reasons. Brahmit man mein, ab uski buddhi usse kya keh rahi hai? What are the reasons he comes up with? So in that shaken up state of his mind, how is his mind thinking? So we saw how his mind thought when he was clear. Now in this shaken up state of mind, what is he thinking? And these verses, let's do one more. Because now the reasoning is starting. We'll continue with the reasoning tomorrow. But let's start this 31st verse. Nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava na cha shreyo nu pashyami hatva swajana mahave. There's first reason he gives. Nimittani cha pashyami viparitani. Then he says, na shreyaha anupashyami hatva swajanam ahave. Ahave means in war, in battle. Hatva, मार के. किसको मार के? स्वजनम, अपने स्वजनों को मार के. न श्रेयः अनुपश्यामि. I do not see any श्रेयः. कुछ फायदा नहीं दिखता मुझे. I don't see any welfare. Remember we said the Shreyas word is going to link the whole Gita. He'll ask what is Shreyas for me. Shreyas means what is that which is spiritually evolving. What is the right thing to do? Irrespective of what I think is right. What I feel is right. He says, I am not seeing. मुझे दिख नहीं रहा कैसे अपने स्वजनों को मार के this can be Shreyas. ये कैसे श्रेयस हो सकता है? Can you see the contrast of his mind? What is he seeing? He says, Nimit, how much fall his buddhi has taken over. He's a Gudakeshaha, but his buddhi has completely taken a backseat, gone somewhere, disappeared, and his mind is now erupting with all kinds of fears, phobias, suspicions. That superstitions. It started expressing all that. Kaise? Nimittani cha pashyami viparitani. I'm seeing all omens. I'm seeing them as they're not omens. They're bad omens. So I'm seeing bad omens. Matlab, as if there is nature telling me, there are signs coming from nature which are telling me that jo main ab karne wala hu, this is going to be wrong. And this language continues even now. People look for signs outside. Signs. I got a sign, therefore, sign from where? A lot of us in temples, bahut hota hai. We go to where, if Bhagwan is listening, please, kahin se phool gir jaye. Bhagwan also has his ways. गिरा देता है if your Shraddha is clear. So now it becomes confirmed. अरे भगवान ने गिराया. So he's saying whatever, there are certain omens at that time, remember much now, but which would be, हाँ, सही काल है, सही वक्त है, those kind of things. So he says, I am seeing all omens which are now not omnious. They are not those that are going to be beneficial. So, first reason he is giving, he says, श्रेयस हमारा ये हो नहीं सकता, मुझे भ्रम है. क्यों? पहली बात, first reason, all the connections outside are showing the opposite. Means they are telling me not to fight. They are saying this war will not be Shreyas. And then the next ones, I think this will stop here for now. And anybody wants to practice chanting? What is it? Practice? We'll start from here only. Do you need the chart?
I have printed.
So it'll be easy. Well, let's start from piche. How many are you comfortable doing?
We can see with the time.
Hanji?
We can see according to the time how much time.
No. How many are you comfortable doing from the beginning on your own? So that I can check you in case I need to check you.
I can try all. I've practiced.
Oh, great. Please go ahead. So wherever I need to check, I'll pause you in case. Good.
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय. सञ्जय उवाच दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकम् व्यूढन् दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत्. पश्यैतां पाण्डुपुत्राणाम् आचार्यमहतीं च मूं व्यूढान् द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येण धीमता. अत्र शूरा महेश्वासाः भीमार्जुनसमायुधि युयुधानो विराटश्च द्रुपदश्च महारथ.
महारथः.
महारथः दृष्टकेतुश्चेकितानः काशीराजश्च वीर्यवान् पुरुजित्कुन्तिभोजश्च तेभ्यश्च नरपुङ्गवः युधामन्युश्च विक्रान्तः उत्तमौजाश्च वीर्यवान् भद्रो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्व एव महारथाः. अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तान्निबोध द्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते.
Okay, 1 minute. Asma, what did you do that? Do that.
अस्माकं.
Come. So it follows with the. So the nasal of the would be
न
the na. So asmakantu.
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तानि बोध द्विजोत्तम.
तानि बोध द्विजोत्तमा.
तानि बोध द्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते। भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च।
Ah, come.
अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदित्तिस्तथैव च।
You do this verse again. We couldn't hear the first line.
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च।
No, 1 minute. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha.
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च। अन्ये च बहवः शूराः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदा।
Visharadaha. The visarga has to be pronounced fully. Nana Shastra Praharnaha Sarve Yuddha Visharadaha.
नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः अपर्याप्तं तदस्माकं बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितम् पर्याप्तं त्विदमेतेषां बलं भीमाभिरक्षितम्।
1 minute. Again, Paryaptam. So, followed by ta. So, Paryaptam Tvidamete
पर्याप्तं त्विदमेतेषाम्। And when it's next balam bhima,
That is
only balam bhimabhirakshitam ayaneshu च सर्वेषु यथा भागमवस्थिताः भीष्ममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि।
very good. Just one minute. Bhishma Meva Bhirakshantu. That bha should be aspirate.
भीममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि।
Bhishma Meva.
I said something else.
Bhima.
भीष्मेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि। तस्य सञ्जनयन् हर्षं कुरुवृद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्यौचैः शङ्खं दद्मौ प्रतापवान्।
Alternatively, it's right also, but alternatively you can also do Simhanadam Vinadyochaihi.
सिंहनादं विनद्यौचैः
Shankhan Dadmau Pratapavan.
शङ्खं दद्मौ प्रतापवान्।
Correct. Continue.
ततः शङ्खाश्च भैर्यश्च प्रणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तु मुलोऽभवत्।
Tashabdastu mulo bhavat.
ततः शब्दस्तुमुलोऽभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः पाञ्चजन्यं हृषीकेशः देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दद्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मावृकोदरः.
One more. After Devadattam, there is Dhananjaya. So the Anuswara can become
देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दद्मौ महाशङ्खम्.
again Paundran alternative.
पौण्ड्रं दद्मौ महाशङ्खम् भीमकर्मावृकोदरः.
That's it. Good. We'll stop here. Excellent. Very, very good. Very good. Saves time. So I think next time someone else can also try. And we will end the class here. So you want to do the Shanti part? Anything?
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति.
Great. So, namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti ji.
Thank you, Deepti
Thank
ji.
you so much. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.